Baker could well steal the championship. He's got to finish at least 7 points ahead. Well, no, 8 points ahead actually. He's got to be 8 points clear at the end of this race. Because he leads the deficit in the championship. He's now 7 points. But if they finish roughly where they are now, then they'll get that swing back again. Very, very close. If any of that made any sense to anybody, I probably wasn't telling it right. It's that complicated in terms of the championship. Basically, what you need to know is that Baker is in prime position to get back the point deficit he lost yesterday. Brycey needs to charge through the field from the fifth row of the starting grid, and he is there alongside Bruce Winfield, who won yesterday's race. Brycey was second in it. The wet weather conditions are a complete lottery, so we will try and work out who wins the championship at the finish, but it's going to be very difficult. You'll have to bear with us. But it's definitely an amazing showdown to end the season, that is for sure. Yeah, it certainly makes it very, very interesting. We've got 3 cars at the back of the grid lined up in really in formation. Oh, yeah, tandem formation. And the rest of them are all on the side-by-side formation. The first one towards there now, I think we'll have 2 green flag laps. And on the second green flag lap, the timer starts. So we'll have about 10-12 minute race. So it's slightly shorter race with the weather. But
Good morning, everybody. Well, the weather conditions here at Donington Park, unfortunately, are only getting worse as the day goes on, but we are not going to let it stop us enjoying ourselves because we have a championship decider about to get underway for the 2018 Cox Motor Parts Civic Cup. These cars have been involved with the TCR UK package once before, back at the season opener at Silverstone, where they had a pretty wet opening race of the season, and their last race of the season is going to be even wetter by the looks of it. But we do have a fascinating championship battle in prospect because Rob Baker arrived here as championship leader by 7 points over Mark Grice in car number 34. However, in yesterday's race, Mark had a bit of a nightmare. Rob had a bit of a nightmare. Rob finished down in 9th position yesterday, whilst Mark Grice was second and only 0.3 of a second away from a race victory. That means that, by my very rough calculations, Mark Grice has now managed to take the championship lead away from Rob Baker, and so it's all to play for going into the final race of the season. There is, though, a reversed grid. The top 10 positions from race number 1's finishing order have been reversed to form the grid for this second race of the weekend, and so Rob Baker, although he finished way behind Mark Grice in yesterday's race, because of that, it now means that he starts way in front of him for this race. So Rob Baker will be on row number 1, whilst Mark Grice will be down in 9th place on the grid. So it's a fascinating championship decider that we have in store for you here over what's scheduled to be 15 minutes. However, we believe that, a bit like we saw in the Formula Ford race that we had earlier on today, they are going to have 2 green flag laps, and the time will start to tick down at the start of the second of those green flag laps, because of course the conditions have changed quite significantly from yesterday. The track was bone dry, in fact, in yesterday's race, whereas now, as you can see, it isn't. It's very wet indeed out there today, so they get an extra green flag lap just to become fully accustomed to the conditions. But because it's a busy timetable here today at Donington Park, they will count the second green flag lap as the first lap of the race, essentially. But it should still be a standing start, albeit in very, very tricky conditions indeed. So the cars coming through now towards the completion of their first green flag lap, and now there you can see the time has started ticking down. So it was only a 15-minute race anyway. If it's anything like the Formula Ford race we had earlier on, we'll have about 12 minutes of racing there or thereabouts. By the time they've all got round and all gridded back up again, we will, I reckon, have about 12 minutes of racing here to decide it. So the grid, as I said, makes for very interesting reading because of that top 10 reversal. It was Aaron Sharp in car number 35 who finished 10th yesterday, and so inherits the pole position here this morning. So Aaron Sharp is on pole position with Rob Baker alongside him. So Rob Baker, who was the championship leader coming into the weekend, now no longer is the championship leader because of his slightly iffy result yesterday. So Rob Baker, starting on the front row of the grid, has a very, very good chance to try and claim the championship after all. Row number 2, we will have Phil Wright and Ben Sharp together, and of course these drivers all in amongst the championship contenders. they don't care one bit about the championship battle going on around them. They're just out to try and end their season on a high. So that's going to make life very interesting indeed. And Phil Wright and Ben Sharp both with a good opportunity here to try and get themselves on the podium. Daniel Hobson and Chris Coomer are on the third row together. Then Mark Gibbons and Jason Ballantyne, row 4. Jason was a podium finisher yesterday. In fact, the top 3, the podium finishes yesterday were all covered at the end of the race by just 3/4 of a second. It was a very close affair yesterday. We expect no different today. Then we have Mark Rice then. So Mark Rice will be down 9th on the grid. There is confirmation, by the way, of the first couple of rows of the grid. So Aaron Sharp and Rob Baker, row 1. Phil Wright and Ben Sharp on row number 2. And then the third row of the grid for Daniel Hobson and Chris Coomer. Then Mark Gibbons and Jason Ballantyne, row 4. And then the 5th row is where we have the championship leader, Mark Rice. So Mark Rice, number 34, you can't miss him. He's the blue and fluorescent yellow car that flashes through shot there. He is your points leader by my reckoning, but that is subject to confirmation because we haven't yet been notified officially of what the points positions are. But Mark Rice will be 9th on the grid. Bruce Winfield, the winner yesterday, will be alongside him on the 5th row of the grid. And they will both be looking to try and move forward, and Mark Rice really maybe could do with working with the likes of Bruce Winfield and Jason Ballantyne, with whom he was battling so hard yesterday. Well, they now could become his best friends, because if they can sort of open the doors for him to work his way up the order, then he may well be able to use that to his advantage. James Griffith there and David Vincent make up row number 6 of the grid. Down on the 7th row is where we find Paul Taylor, with alongside him Martin DL. Their two drivers also looking to try and move up the field. Then it's Luke Handley and Matt Bolton, row 8. Row 9 for Dave Ward and Oliver Barsby. Oliver Withington and Chris Mullen are on the 10th row. Then it's Dave Poyser and Andy Hart, row 11. Row 12 for Natasha Tressler and David Buki. He's a front-running driver usually. He's got work to do from 24th on the grid. Matt Higginson, Paul McHugh and Craig Carter round out the 27, hopefully 27 starters that we will have for this final round of the championship. Well, we are getting ready for, well, as I said, just under 12 minutes, about 11.5 minutes of racing I think we're going to get, because the back couple of rows of the grid are just about lined up, and it is the white and black number 35 car of Aaron Sharp that has the pole position. The blue and black car, number 6 alongside him, Rob Baker, needs to try and win this race. If he wins this race, then realistically Mark Rice needs to get on the podium as a bare minimum to have any chance of keeping hold of his very slender championship lead. And Mark Rice, you can just see the number 34 car on the 5th row on the inside line. Will the inside be the place to be at turn 1, or will it maybe be a bit safer on the outside? Well, we're about to find out, because I think the back of the grid has now been formed. The 5-second board has been raised, and for the final time in 2018, the Cox Motor Parts Civic Cup is about to get underway. The red lights go out, they scrabble for grip off the line, and who is it that gets the best start from the front of the grid? It's going to be Aaron Sharp from pole position, who gets a real flyer. Further back, Mark Rice is involved in all sorts of fisticuffs. Look at that, Mark Rice bouncing his way through the field. There was one car that wasn't accelerating, and it nearly caused chaos in the mid-grid as they turn through Redgate Corner for the first time. And do we get them all safely through? Fingers crossed. There's more jostling at the front of the field there as Mark Rice again dives from one side of the road to the other, trying to make early progress. It's wheel to wheel for the race leader. That's Rob Baker up alongside Aaron Sharp. I think Sharp is going to hang on as they drop down through the Crater curves. Cars getting sideways. That was Mark Rice getting sideways. Unfortunately, because of the slightly iffy conditions here today, a bit of water's got into places where it shouldn't have been with our camera down at the old hairpin. We'll try and resolve that as the day goes on, but we'll wait with bated breath for now to see who appears as the race leader, and I don't think it is either Aaron Sharp or Rob Baker now. So we've got another leader now as they twitch their way up towards McLean's, and that is car number 24, Ben Sharp, that leads them into the right hand at the top of the hill. In second place looks to be Rob Baker in car number 6. So Baker is still in the podium positions, and where is Grice? There he is. So Grice is 6th position at the moment, so he's already gained 3 spots from where he started. Through Coppice they go then. It's Sharp that leads the way. It is Rob Baker in second position. Third place, look, that's the 1-2-3 car, isn't it? And Mark Gibbons from 7th on the grid. So it's really changed around here in the early stages of the race, as you'd expect, I suppose, with a reversed grid encounter. Often you do see a lot of early shuffling as the quick drivers start to work their way back up the order. Down onto the brakes they come, though, towards the Roberts chicane. And Rob Baker at the moment does not seem to be able to go with Ben Sharp. If anything, he's really having to get his elbows out. The Area Motorsport run car is under pressure from another Area Motorsport run car there of Mark Gibbons, the red machine, ducking out of line in the background. That's number 55 by the looks of it, Chris Coomer, that's trying to make a move. And then behind him, Mark Rice trying to draw to the outside line as well and gain ground. Onto the brakes they go. The lead margin 1.3 seconds already for Sharp at the front of the field, Ben Sharp that is. And then this battle for second place with Rob Baker defending heavily now from Mark Gibbons in third. Chris Coomer is fourth, and Mark Rice is going for fifth position there. He was up the inside of the number 22 machine, that was, I think, of Jason Ballantyne. Yes, it was. And did he go through? I think he did, peering through the murk in the distance. I think the blue and yellow car has now gone up an extra position. So good stuff so far for Mark Rice, but he's not yet on the podium. But Rob Baker is not leading the race either. Rob Baker in second position. Well, if you finish second, you get 22 points. So he would score 22 at the moment, whilst Mark Rice in fifth would score 16. So that, I reckon, would be enough for Rob Baker to nick the championship. But of course, it may not stay that way. Up the hill they go then. Replay here of what happened at Redgate a moment ago. That's car number 39, sliding out into the dirt. Great save that was. A very, very close moment indeed for Oliver Withington there at Redgate corner. Gathers it all together though, which is good to see. He could very easily have spun and ended up pointing the wrong way there. Battle for second then, still going on, and this is Rob Baker continuing to busily defend here from the third place car of Gibbons, and Mark Gibbons from seventh on the grid has really stormed up the order in the opening lap, but now that he's come up against one of the championship contenders, he is struggling to get through. They are, as I said, both run by the same team as well, so that maybe is factoring into all of this a little bit, but at the same time, if Gibbons is quicker, he won't want to get held up and lose the opportunity for a podium or maybe even a race victory here, because I'd say that lead gap is certainly not going up. Is it coming down? No, in fact, the fastest lap is set by the fifth place car Hobson, and Mark Rice. Now, is Mark Rice still there on the yeah, I think Mark Rice has had a moment somewhere. Our timing screen is showing his name plummeting down the order. Mark Rice, I don't think is there, is he? So Mark Rice, unfortunately, well, this could be a real turning point as far as the championship's concerned. There's a car in the gravel somewhere, I believe. That's car number 15 that's had a moment. I think that's McLean's, possibly. And that car looks well and truly beached, unfortunately. So it could be the end of the day for Luke Handley, and it could require a safety car period to get that car moved. Right, I'll drag my eyes away from the action on the screen to try and find out where Mark Rice is. Right, he's 17th. Mark Rice is 17th place and some 24 seconds behind the race leader as the safety car, unsurprisingly, is scrambled with the car stuck in the gravel somewhere out on track. Was it McLean's? Yes, it was McLean's that we've lost Luke Handley. And that's another part of the circuit where the river tends to form. When it's really wet, you get a lot of standing water in that part of the circuit. Very easy to catch people out. But Mark Rice, what drama then? See, I was looking at the number 25 car, I think that is, isn't it? That's Daniel Hobson, which is a very similar colour to Mark Rice. Oh, replay here of a car at the... Oh, this is going to be a big hit into the barriers. Oh, very big hit into the gravel. Now, was that... I think that might have been Mark Gibbons, because Gibbons is still there in third, I think. No, he's not, is he? That was Mark Gibbons. So Mark Gibbons from a podium position now has gone off as well. So they're all throwing themselves at the scenery here. And Mark Gibbons down at the Crater Curves. Again, another part of the circuit where the standing water could be an issue. Although, in fairness, standing water seems to be an issue pretty much everywhere you look here at Donington Park at the moment. So the safety car comes out. Deep breath. Thumbs up over the pit wall there to Rob Baker, presumably. Oh, there's another car off now. And that's the number 16 car that's joined the number 15. So Matt Bolton's gone off, right where Luke Handley went off. If ever you wondered why they throw a safety car just because there's a car stopped at the side of the road, this is why. Because if one car can go off there, then another one can, especially in these conditions. And the marshals can't be expected to go out there when the racing is still going on to fix to clear up the incident. So the safety car has to be thrown for the safety of the marshals, if nothing else. We have to spare a thought for the Orange Army today, because these are the kind of conditions where I'm glad that I'm sat inside in a nice warm commentary box. That is not a luxury, though, that the poor marshals have. And remember, they do this all voluntarily as well. They don't get paid to come and marshal. They do it simply because they love the sport. Now, we lost Mark Gibbons at that part of the circuit, didn't we, a lap or two ago? And I don't think he's there anymore. So has he miraculously been able to get that car moving again? He has not yet completed the third lap, so he's not made his way to the time line at the end of the lap, but he may well have been able to pull the car into a slightly less dangerous position, possibly. Those two cars are definitely in a dangerous position, and the safety car had to be called, really. And I fear, with two cars now stuck there, we may not see much more racing, in which case Rob Baker, provisionally, I think, is going to be champion, because Rob Baker in second position, well, he's going to get 22 points at the moment, so 22 points for Rob Baker. He's certainly not 22 points behind Mark Rice in the championship, so we've been desperately trying to figure it all out, and where where Mark Grice needs to finish if Rob Baker wins, etc. But, of course, Mark Grice at the moment is running down in, where is he now? 16th place. So if we don't go racing again, and to be honest, even if we do go racing again, it is highly unlikely that Mark Grice is going to make up enough positions to keep Rob Baker behind him in the points. So Rob Baker, despite the fact he's not winning this race, he's only in second place, I think is going to take the championship here. Of course, the added complication here, though, is the fact that they drop their 2 worst scores. So if you have any non-finishers throughout the season, you will count them as a dropped score. Now, this is presumably going to become one of Mark Grice's worst finishes of the year. So if this now becomes a drop score, he can then count maybe a slightly better finish from earlier on in the season, if you see what I mean. It's all a bit complicated, but it does keep things interesting right down to the last race, and it means that we will have to wait for official confirmation after the race to find out exactly what is going on. So Rob Baker, though, at the moment, I think is doing enough to win the title. Now, there is the 16 car of Matt Bolton being recovered from the gravel. And in fact, they're going to get Luke Handley's car out pretty quickly as well. It looks as though Matt Bolton's going to be able to drive back to the pit lane, dropping gravel all over the place. So in theory, we could go racing this time. So I reckon we might have time for a 1-lap dash here at the end. It's been a dramatic race, this one, and it looks set to end in suitably dramatic fashion because a 1-lap sprint, of course, we're saying that Rob Baker's doing enough to win the championship, but all it takes is for him to hit a bit of standing water and go off the road, and then it all changes again. All of a sudden, the 16th place finish for Grice might be enough because he does have the points advantage. He doesn't have to finish that high up the order. If Rob Baker goes off and doesn't finish the race at all, then that would hand the title straight back to Grice. There is Luke Handley's car that's parked on the side of the road, and Luke is back in the car by the looks of it, so I think hopefully as long as he can fire it back up, he should be able to pull clear of the danger zone. Yes, he can. Look at the mess that's been made on the track. They look at all the gravel now. They're going to bother sweeping that up. There's Matt Bolton's car, which will need a bit of a polish after this race because it's very, very dirty indeed. And it doesn't help that the side of that car is white normally as well, so it does, as the owner of a white car on the road, I must stress, I know the dangers of driving in wet weather because the car does end up looking a little bit dirty by the end of a long journey, and especially if you manage to deposit your car in a gravel trap of some sort. Well, the drivers are working their way around at the top of the circuit. There's a minute and a quarter left on the clock, so we should have time to go racing again, I think, at the end of this one, if they bring the safety car in this time. If it stays out for another lap, then that will be it. It will end on the safety car. Let's hope that we can go racing, because it would be a shame to end the race under the pace car. It would be nice to get a bit of a dash for the cash, so to speak, here at the end of the race. But, of course, one driver who won't particularly, well, 2 drivers, I'd imagine, who don't particularly want the race to restart are the top 2, Ben Sharp and Rob Baker, because for Ben Sharp, he's leading the race, and a finish on the safety car would guarantee a race victory. And for Rob Baker, a finish on the safety car would guarantee the championship. But we are going to go racing. There is one more lap of this to go as they exit the chicane. The safety car peels out of the way, and it's been a great start, that, for Ben Sharp. Look at the gap that he's pulled immediately over Rob Baker in second place. We'll keep one eye towards the midfield as well to see what progress Mark Grice can make, but we think that he needs to be inside the top 5 at least if Rob Baker is in second position to take the championship. Dive up the inside there. That was a change of position, I think, for 4th place. That was Ballantyne up the inside of Hobson, I believe. So the rest of the field starts to stake their way through. There is Mark Grice. Look on the inside line, the blue and yellow car, I believe. Yes, that's number 34, Mark Grice. There's no obvious damage on the car, but we do believe he's been off somewhere earlier on. He has to make progress and just hope that Rob Baker runs into some sort of difficulties, but that's really, it's out of his hands now. Whatever happens, happens. There's not really all that much that he can do to decide his fate in this one. Down the hill they come then for the final time. Confirmation this is the last lap of the race. And Ben Sharp, your race leader, look at him, he's pulling away. I wonder where he'd gone then. There he is. Oh, he's very sideways though as they head towards what is not only a wet McLean's corner, but also a very gravelly one too. So this could catch a few people out. Rob Baker gets through safely though in second place, and that in a way say is the most significant driver we need to watch here at the front of the field, because the only way that the championship is now going to go the way of Mark Grice, realistically, is if Rob Baker goes off. And in fact, there's a car. Is that Mark Grice off again? Or is that, no, I think that might be 25. I think that's Daniel Hobson, isn't it, that's gone off now on the run-up towards McLean's and has parked at the side of the road. The leaders, though, are coming out of Coppice for the final time, back down the exhibition straight. 2 more corners to go before Ben Sharp takes a race victory, and 2 more corners to go before provisionally Rob Baker becomes the champion. We've had another moment there. Number 39 has gone around up at McLean's, but the leaders are coming out of the final corner for the final time, and it's going to be a victory in the final round of the Cox Motor Parts Civic Cup for Ben Sharp. Ben Sharp sees the checkered flag, and a great result that was for him. But Rob Baker's second position should be enough to wrap up the title. They're still racing for third, despite the fact the checkered flag has come out. It was third place in the end for Chris Coomer, and fourth was indeed Jason Ballantyne. Ballantyne even from 8th on the grid. Fifth position coming through will be car 195. That's Paul Taylor from 13th on the grid. So we had quite a few drivers really making their way up the order. And Mark Grice, remarkably, he did gain 3 places on that last lap, so he finishes 13th position. Now, he will score some points for 13th, I believe. Yeah, you score points wherever you finish, actually. So 13th place is worth 6 points. Second place for Rob Baker, though, is worth 22. So it doesn't take a genius mathematician to figure out that that is a big enough swing, provided that has not changed the drop score situation, at least for Mark Grice. Then that's a big enough swing for Rob Baker to take the title. In a moment or two, when the cars make their way back down to the pit lane, we will hand down to Bryn Lucas, very soggy Bryn Lucas, I'm sure, down in the pit lane, who hopefully will have a bit more news on the point situation. It does all get a bit complicated with the drop score system. That's and it's often the way that a driver in the thick of the championship battle will have their worst weekend or their worst race at the last round, because it's just the way it works, isn't it? The last round of any championship is always dramatic, and it's not uncommon for one of the championship contenders to have a non-finish, which then completely changes the championship outlook. So we will get confirmation as soon as we can. But one man we know is celebrating is Ben Sharp, because Ben Sharp has taken the victory in the final race of the season and took full advantage, really, of the reverse grid. He finished 7th yesterday, which meant that he started 4th today, but just got a great start, picked his way through the first couple of corners and found himself in the lead, and really never looked back from there. There were a few others, though, further back who were not quite so fortunate, and we had that fairly sizable incident for Mark Gibbons, who went off down at the Crater Curves. That was a big old hit into the barriers. Mark never did get going again, by the way, so he is classified 24th. I think he was the only retirement, though, because officially Matt Bolton and Luke Handley actually took the checkered flag, so they have been classified as finishers. So Mark Gibbons, remarkably, given the conditions, the only retirement from that race, and it's a shame because he was running in a podium position, but that was the end of his race in rather spectacular fashion. Well, there is confirmation of the result then. Ben Sharp takes the victory with Rob Baker in second position. Chris Coomer third, Jason Ballantyne was 4th, and Paul Taylor from 13th on the grid finished 5th. Bruce Winfield was 6th, then it was David Vincent and Phil Wright, with David Buki and Andy Hart rounding out the top 10. Outside of the top 10 is where we find Dave Ward and Martin DL, and then Mark Grice, the championship leader, coming into that race. He had an off somewhere out in the miserable conditions, though, and it appears to have cost him the title. Aaron Sharp was 14th from Oliver Barsby 15th. Then it was Chris Mullen, Dave Poyser, Paul McHugh, Craig Carter and Daniel Hobson to round out the top 20. 21st position was Oliver Withington. Then we had those two that had issues, Matt Bolton and Luke Handley, officially classified 22nd and 23rd, because albeit after some assistance from the marshals, they were running in the flag, with Mark Gibbons the only non-finisher from the race. And if you were trying to predict the amount of finishers from that race at the start of it, you probably wouldn't have guessed there'd only be one non-finisher at the end of it, because in those sort of conditions you'd expect it to catch more people out. Well, big celebrations down in the pit lane, and Ben Sharp with the victory, and that is great to see the camaraderie there between the drivers down in the pit lane. And regardless of who wins or loses, there is always a handshake and a hug and a congratulation. Now, Rob Baker and Mark Grice there exchanging a handshake, and Rob Baker has a very big smile on his face, so I think So Rob Baker has just learnt that Mark Rice finished 13th, and therefore Rob Baker is champion. But the man with all of the answers, we hope, is Bryn Lucas, who has popped his head out of the garage, braving the conditions, to have a chat with our podium finishers.
Honestly, I thought it was going
Yeah, thanks very much, Andy. I'm here with the race winner, and just before you cut down to us, there were a few expletives, but happy ones. Now, watch your language, of course, but that was hard work, wasn't it?
Yeah, I've not driven conditions like that bad before. It was going down the Craner curves, it was literally out of control every single lap, but luckily just enough to keep on. And mega, I got a really good start off the line. I knew the outside was where the grip was, and just rolled round, and Rob ran out, tiny bit of contact, but I just had enough to carry him past him. And then I was put in a bit of a gap, and the safety car came out, and I was really worried. I've never done a safety car restart before, and I don't know if I caught him by surprise, but I had quite a big lead, and I didn't realise it was the last lap, so I was pushed like mad to get, and then I realised, come across the line, I was like, oh, it's a checkered flag. So
It was a race for us that had everything and more as well. So for you, one of the biggest challenges you've had behind a wheel on a racetrack, and to win the race, just put your thoughts into as many words as you like. Go on.
well, I was just so happy. We've had a real hard year this year. We've had diffs break, dampers break, ruining race weekends, and we've always been thereabouts, just not quite at the ultimate pace. We've come here this weekend with a few changes, and the car has been mega dry and wet for the first time this year. And then as soon as I saw it raining today, I was like, I saw Bruce's run yesterday, I was like, I've got to do the same today. I've got to do it.
Well done. Congratulations. What a win.
Thank you very much.
There you go. There's our race winner. Let's bring in number 2, shall we? Why not? Actually, let's bring in number 3. Let's bring in to Chris. So Chris, 3rd place there. Treacherous conditions and spray all the way for you. You couldn't see a thing.
Horrendous, yeah. Car had pretty good pace. All of a sudden, it smelled like a burning smell. I had electrical fire in the car. Lost power steering. Lost the heated screen. Couldn't see anything. And when we went over the line, the cars all slowed down. I didn't realise we'd finished, so I was just hanging on till the end. So yeah, only just hung on to it. Just couldn't see anything. But yeah, it was a great race. First podium in 2-litre class.
I mean, it was a remarkable race, really. There were people going off at every turn. And actually looking at it out there for us when we were watching this race, you had to put up with so much. You had the safety car, you had the restart, you had to keep on going through it. And every time, these conditions are getting worse and worse out on track. Yeah,
it was just horrendous. I nearly chucked it all away in the first couple of laps, so I just back it down. Thought I'm better with any place than being off, and luckily I just managed to get my first podium and take it through to end. It was good.
Fantastic stuff. Any messages to your sponsors in the team around?
Yeah, just like to say big thanks to Uri Motorsport, SW Motorsport, PBS brake pads, and anyone else who helps me and family and everyone. It's been a great year.
The manufacturers of umbrellas as well.
That's it, yeah. Thank you.
Well done there. So we have got the guy who finished 2nd in the race. Now, what a race it was. Andy was talking through all of this, wasn't he? And he was telling us about how Mark was getting on in the championship. Mark coming off, getting back on the track, and then having to fight back to a valiant 13th. But the championship winner finished 2nd in this race. We're trying to grab him over right now, but he is, as you can imagine, ecstatic and overjoyed and full of emotion. But here he is. I'm going to go and get him. Just follow us over here, and we'll grab hold of Rob. Let's get hold of him. Rob, what a race. What a race that was. 2nd place for you. You probably had no idea what was going on behind with Mark, but 2nd place was good enough.
Yeah, in all honesty, I was following Ben, who got me off the line. Where he braked, I was braking, because you can't see anything. Couldn't see out the rear mirrors to see where Mark was, so it was a race of keeping it on the track. Mark, who unfortunately went off down Cranes, put me under a lot of pressure at the start. Safety car helped a little bit, calm things down slightly, but yeah, made up with it. But
it also makes it tricky with the safety car, because you have to restart, and then Mark is that little bit closer again, and he finished 13th, so he was trying to climb back up the order.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know where he was. I had no idea. And then Danny Hobson's got a luminous and blue car, and I kept catching a glimpse of that in 5th. And I knew he had to finish 4th to get the championship, so I kept pushing, and fortunately it paid off.
But you've got the title. That's the all-important thing. What's it mean to you?
It's massive. I can't really put it into words. I didn't come into this. We had a spare car 2 days before the first round, and I decided to have a go again. I had been in 2014, stopped for a few years, decided to have a go. Did all right there, did the next round, came away leading the championship, ended up carrying on for the rest of the season. And it's a brilliant championship to race in, really good.
I can't work out if you're shaking because you're cold or shaking because you're so full of emotion.
Cold.
That was the wrong line. You're supposed to do the other one for that. Yeah, let's do that again. Can't work out if you're shivering because you're excited or cold.
Full of emotion.
There you go. That's the correct answer. No, well done. That was a brilliant, brilliant race. Some of the hardest conditions out there you've probably faced, not just this year, but in your career as well.
Definitely. We run on a semi-slick tyre, so we run the same tyre for dry and wet weather. So they're great in the dry and they are good in the wet. But it's a task getting it around the track on them, for sure.
Congratulations. Go and get your second place trophy and go and get your Champions trophy as well.
Cheers. Thanks a lot.
There we go. Our race winner. It is, I can confirm, horrendous out here weather-wise, but it produces some amazing racing. A shame for Mark, though, for the season to end that way, but well done to Rob, taking the title. That's it for us in the Civic Cup here at Donington Park. We've got more action coming up, though, so stay tuned for the Mazdas and for the TSR as well.
Marshals have a sweep of tracks around at the flames at the moment, trying to just dry off. Well, I think that's probably there to get some of the gravel off, but there's clearly an issue at that end of the circuit with civics pirouetting all over the place doing a bit of a dance. Clearly there's an issue with the water up at that end of the circuit, so we'll just wait to see when we're told we can go. At the moment, behind me is lining up the HRDC touring race for their qualifying session. This will be the last qualifying session of the day, and then it's all into racing. They'll have a 25-minute qualifying session because their race is, the last race of the day is 45 minutes, so we get a bit longer qualifying. As we have some two drivers driving in some of the cars, some of them are single drivers, but there'll be a driver change, so that means another